Hello and welcome to another episode of Being a Woman. I'm Toni.
And I'm Sonya. Welcome back. And today we've got a new subject for you, and it is called What are the stories that you're telling yourself? We've all got plenty of those, don't we, Tony?
We like to tell stories.
Yes, we do. And one of the really interesting things is your every thought, your word, and behavior have a huge effect on your overall health.
So those things that we are feeding ourselves, like our thoughts and our feelings, we actually are feeding ourselves those things. So are we nourishing ourselves with our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors, our choices that we make each day?
Exactly. And what we did is we put it out to you out there in social media world and asked, what are the stories that you're telling yourself? And we got some great feedback. And so we're just going to read through a couple of those for you today. And some of these you might actually say, yes, that's me. Yes, that's me. Or maybe you've got some other stories. And that's okay too, because we've all got a story. And then Toni and I are going to share with you some of our stories that we sometimes still have come up every now and then, but the stories that we've told ourselves in the past and the stories that do just regurgitate sometimes. So some of the things of what the ladies were saying, and I just wrote these down, is that you just need to suck it up and get on with it. And how harsh is that on ourselves when we say that? We're not honoring ourselves in that moment to just take a breath, but rather we've got the sergeant major, which is a good one that I've had in the past, to just go, suck it up, get on with it, which really sort of says you're not really important at the moment.
Yeah.
You're not important right now. You just got to suck it up and get on with it. And how often have you said that to yourself? One of the other ones was that I shouldn't burden others with my troubles. You know,
Which is similar, isn't it, to the last one of
mm,
not being important enough.
absolutely. Or thinking that you don't have support, that you don't have people around you that would actually sit and listen to you, which is
Mm.
really important, especially as a woman. And that's one of the things that we've talked about before, and we try to always do within our own businesses as well, is just hold that space for people. Sometimes they're not looking for you to fix their problems. We're not looking to give you solutions, but sometimes you just want to be heard.
Absolutely. Sharing and talking through our problems, especially as women, that's really important for
Mhm.
us, right? It's how we learn information, is passing it on. So when we can share, what we're doing is we're opening our heart to someone and we're really showing that other person a lot of trust. And when we share a part, like we're actually connecting with people, aren't we? And
Absolutely.
so we're creating those deep bonds of trust and friendship, yeah, of connection with other people when we're
Mhm.
sharing our stories.
Absolutely. And most of the time, if we look at that too, when someone's sharing something with you, there's usually a little piece of that you can relate to because we're all mirrors of each other. So we're mirroring to each other, even though it might feel like your story in that moment, there might be a little bit of your story that the other person's going, I can really relate to that because I used to tell myself the same thing, or maybe they're still telling themselves the same thing. And in that moment of that connection and talking about it, you're giving each other permission to say, I actually don't need to tell myself that story anymore. Or I'm not that bad because someone else is doing that too. Because sometimes we beat up on ourselves thinking that how horrible are we to say that to ourselves rather than being aware that someone else is doing the same thing and it's okay.
That makes us feel less alone. Like I had
Exactly.
that. We're all the same as
Yes.
human beings, but going through the same struggles and challenges. And so that's why it's really important to share how we're feeling and to share our struggles. Not like, and I'm not talking about like, that the dumping or the word vomit
Oh,
that
yes.
we can do to people. um we can have our chance to speak, but also like allowing the other person to speak as well, so that you're not just taking all of your stuff and dumping it on someone else, and then you're feeling better now, so you can go, but they will have taken that all on and may have taken it all on, and then they feel like they're carrying the heavy load of all of your worries. So it's important to have that equal share time as well.
Exactly. That exchange of energies, the listener and the talker,
Yeah.
almost like there's the talking stick now, and then I've got the talking stick. And just being able to share that. So, that comment there really hit home to me because I used to have that story a long time ago that I shouldn't burden others. Anyway, we'll talk into that in just a minute. But one of the other ones, it was, I'm not good enough and always a hassle to others. I just want to be liked. And that, when I read that, I thought, wow, that feels really sad because there's this yearning for somebody who just wants to be liked by others. But the story that they keep telling themselves is that I'm not good enough and I'm always just a hassle to others. Now, whether this has come about from a situation or maybe in a moment they needed someone to talk to and there wasn't anybody available, and then they told themselves the story that they're not important and they don't want to hassle people. And we just don't know where these stories come from at first, and we're going to talk into that in a moment. But I felt really sad in that moment because I could feel the energy of that person saying that to themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it was so harsh. And this one, the last one I'll share with you from our little social media was I can't sit down because I'm being lazy. And that is such a story I think that majority of women have, especially if you're in the mother phase when you've got small children and there's always things to be doing and there's housework to be doing and dinner to be cooked and children to be changed or getting to school and sporting events, that the thought of you sitting down, there's just no time for that. And unless you make the time, and this comes back to how important we are. So there's lots of stories that people tell themselves. What's one of the stories that you've told yourself?
Uh, uh, being a woman, one of the stories I've told myself is that men have it easier and it's harder being a woman, and that men have more freedom and that we don't have as much freedom being women, that it's unsafe to be a woman, um, and therefore there's that like lack of freedom of going out. I certainly felt like that as a teenager. Just trying to think of some earlier memories from when I was younger. Um, I suppose it was that, yeah, I felt that men had more power, probably,
Mm,
when I look at the big picture of everything. Uh, I think that was, yeah, yeah, that just came out. So
mm.
interesting. When
Yeah,
I looked at all of those little stories and put them all together, what was the big picture of that? All of those little stories was that men have more power in the world and more freedom. And I wonder how many of you have that belief as well.
exactly.
Yeah. What are some of your stories?
Wow, I've got a lot. Growing up like yourself, I've had stories that there's not enough money, there's never enough money. Uh, I've also had the story of if you want something done, do it yourself. Don't
Mm.
rely on others.
Yeah.
If you want something done, just go and get it done yourself. And, when you look at all the stories that we've talked about today, that is easily rolling into I haven't got time to sit down. I'll be lazy if I sit down. I'm not good enough. And it's really interesting that when we start talking about stories that we play in our minds and we keep telling ourselves that when you put a big list of them all together, they just create this big ball of flowing words that really don't even exist really, except in our own mind. It's
Yeah.
like this swirling that goes around. And if we just stopped for a minute and said, that's not true, how free would we be?
Oh, so free. I love that you came up with that idea of the swirling ball, right?
Mm.
Because that just said to me, it's like this energy, right?
Yes.
It's because every thought creates a feeling. And every feeling also has a thought, right? So I have this little saying that thoughts and feelings are two sides of the same coin. And so with every thought, there comes a feeling, and with every feeling, there is a thought, whether it's conscious or unconscious.
Mm.
But when Sonya said there's this big ball of thoughts that are swirling around, it's like, yes, it's that energy.
Yes.
It's that feeling that we're creating by thinking those things. So those thoughts can manifest into a feeling of being unworthy. And when you think of that, like how heavy does that feel,
Mm.
right? How draining, how just heavy.
Absolutely. And that sort of rolls us into the second part of the podcast of, those are the stories that we tell ourselves. And I'm sure that you've got 101 of them. And it might even be a good idea to just maybe write those down. What are those stories that have been floating around in your head for the past day or two? And what would be really interesting is then you ask yourself, those are the same thoughts that I have every day. I have
Yeah.
those thoughts every day that I've had for the past 20 years. It's the same story. It's like it's just on repeat. It's the same story going on and on and on and on. And at some point, we need to draw the line and realize that it's just a story. It doesn't really exist. It's just the story that we're creating in our minds, which then flows on to, like I said, the second part of what do those stories then do to us? What do they do to our mental health? What do they do to our physical health? And what do they do to relationships, friendships? All of them. They're just these stories that they create a belief system that we start believing the stories, which then starts to have a ongoing effect to us physically. So
Yeah, the ripple effect
the
of
ripple effect.
our physical health and our mental health, our emotional health, our
Yeah.
spiritual health. So, yeah, if we look at that, the energy of those negative thoughts is that they are negative,
Yes.
right? They're not positive. So that's why we need to start looking at them and identifying what are those thoughts and beliefs that I'm telling myself every single day. So, like Sonia said, writing it out, just write out like 5 or 10 thoughts or stories that you've been telling yourself over the last couple of days. Okay. So, when you really take the time to do that, it's amazing how powerful that process can be.
Absolutely.
In identifying those patterns of thought, and then we can look at changing them.
And the other interesting thing is that when you do write those things down, and we're saying the last couple of days, if you look at them and ask yourself, when did I start telling myself that story? How old was I when I started telling myself that story? And realizing how many years possibly you've been telling yourself that story, and then asking yourself, but where did that story come from? And like most things that we are challenged with, where usually most of that stuff is coming from either childhood, it's coming from ancestral, or it's coming from a belief somewhere. And it might not even be your belief. It might be a story that, say, your mother had that you've carried on because you've heard the story. It's no different to opening a storybook. Now, we all know the story of Cinderella, right? Because we've all read the book, we've all heard the book. But is that story real? No, it's not real. There's no Prince Charming coming to get your slipper, right? Or to turn your slipper into the golden slipper or whatever it is, the diamond slipper. The point is, but Did you believe that story when you were a little girl? Of course you did. You were waiting for this prince to come because that's the story you were told over and over and over again. How many times did we read
Right.
fairy tales?
So have you been waiting for someone to come and save you? Which is
Yes.
generally a story that we as women carry.
Mm,
It can
that's a
simply be from
big one.
fairy stories or movies, but it can be from the behavior of our families and our mothers or our grandmothers or the women in our family.
Mm,
Just the behavior. They might not have even spoken out loud those thoughts,
mm.
but the behavior that they were like playing out, it teaches us, it shows us by role modeling that this is how life is. So, even behaviors can be our teachers. Right? It doesn't have to be words that have been spoken to us because children generally learn
Mm,
by like role modeling,
that's right.
right? By copying, by doing what their
Mm.
parents do, not by what they say.
You only have to look at how many children walk around with anything square to be a phone.
That's right.
It's the mimicking. It's the mimicking all the time. So if like I'll take my story of the money, right? So I heard over and over again in my life, there isn't enough money. Money's scarce. We're not made out of money. Money doesn't grow on trees.
I have. We've got to get through winter.
Like,
Winter,
batten down the
winter is
hatches.
coming.
Winter's coming. Quick, just get under the. We're hibernating in the house. I'm just seeing like the old tribes, with the skins, the animal skins, just rugging up for the winter in that space. Get all the potatoes out. We've got enough potatoes.
Gather all the nuts,
That's right. But and it's funny to laugh at those stories. And sometimes I think that that's what we actually have to do is when you write down that list, look at that list and ask yourself and feel into your body, do I really believe that now? Do I
Yeah.
really believe that now?
Is it true?
Or is it just something in that bag that you're carrying? We all, carry these extra bags of luggage. Sometimes some people have, the little car that you have in the airport that's got like all the baggages on them, and they're just driving along through life with a ten carriage tray filled with bags of crap that just don't matter, that you just don't let go of, and you just all the stories and all the beliefs and everything else, and you're just dragging that thing around, and it's no wonder you feel heavy and you feel exhausted and tired and burnt out and all of those things, that we've got this heaviness that we're dragging around with us. So I think the becoming really aware of what it is that you're telling yourself. And like we said, identify that to where did that come from? And
Yeah,
ask yourself, is it
absolutely.
actually my story, or was it the story that I'm carrying on? Like the Cinderella book, we got it read to us. We then read it to our children and they read it to someone else. The same thing, it's is it actually even your story, or is it story that you heard that you've just taken on board? Put that book in your library. Maybe it's time to clear out the library and start creating some new stories.
Yeah. So we can look at you can look at the thoughts, or you can look at the feeling. Okay, because they're two sides of the same coin,
Mm,
you can go in when you do this inner work, you can go in both ways. Okay, so whatever's easier for you. Um, so if it's the feeling, if it's that heaviness, you can ask yourself, why am I feeling heavy? What is the story that I'm telling myself that's weighing me down?
mm,
Okay, or you can just go straight to the thought, and you may have recognized already a thought there or a story already. And then you can look at the feeling, like how is this story actually making me feel in my body?
mm,
And when you become aware of those things that are holding you down and holding you back, then you can work on changing them. So becoming aware of them in the first place is the first step. And then the second step is letting go, whichever we've spoken about is the hardest part, right? But one of the questions that you can ask yourself, like, is this actually true? And logically look at the story from logic.
Absolutely.
Right? Is this actually true?
Which I know sometimes is hard too for as women, because men have more of a logical mind. We are more in a feeling mind. You know, we feel the things. And it's very easy for us to feel something and believe it straight up, you know. But yes, it's all part of that retraining our brain, retraining our nervous system, and retraining what we've done in the past. You know, how's that working for us? You know, is this continuing to tell this same story, to have all these books in our library, to continue to keep saying them? Is that working for us? Or is it time to change and learn a new technique, like a little bit of logic, and really, like you said, break that down and actually say, does this logically actually seem true?
Yeah. So another thing you can do is you can use all of your senses, right, to help you release and let go of stories and feelings. So you can use your visual sense, and you can imagine yourself taking the book and throwing it away, or burning the book, right? So using your visual imagination sense. So we use our logic sense, our mind, and now you can use our visual sense. So you can imagine yourself taking the book and burning it, or taking that heavy bag and throwing it off the edge of a cliff. Okay, so that's using your visual sense, that you are choosing in that moment to let go and release something. All right. The other thing you can do is using your sound sense, your hearing, is you can tell yourself something different. So using an affirmation or a mantra. So what is something that we could say?
Well, I suppose that first thing that we were saying is, you know, is this true?
Yeah.
Do I really believe this to be true?
Yeah.
And then we can tell ourselves, no, it's just a story.
Yeah.
But
perfect.
then what looking at that, and when you have the awareness of, let's just say it was money, right? That money doesn't grow on trees and blah, 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 blah. And we all know that there's no real money tree. Otherwise, we'd all have one in our backyard. But then changing that and saying something like you said, a little mantra in this space. I'm worthy and attracting money into my life.
Yeah, perfect.
So just flip that, rather than saying, I don't have any money and I'm never going to have any money, I'm always going to be poor. Flipping that script, and just by stepping back and saying, and you don't have to say, I've got lots of money, I've got lots of money, because your brain won't think that, because it's going, well, you don't have money right now. But we're not thinking about that right now. We're manifesting or changing that thought pattern by saying, I am attracting money. I'm attracting money into my life. So it's coming. I'm attracting money into my life. And it's really surprising how that actually works. And sometimes we do it and sometimes we forget. But when we actually say that, I'm worthy, that's the big one, is that I'm worthy of money. Because I think a lot of the times when we think about we don't have any money, we actually don't think we're worth the money either.
Yeah,
we don't think we're worth what we're either being paid, whether that's through our businesses or in a job, or if you've got a job that you think that you need to be paid more money, you're being underpaid, and you continually keep working there, there's this misalignment for you. So your belief is going to be like, that's all I'm worth because that's all my boss is prepared to pay me. But knowing your own worth, and this is what really gets me excited about, we're talking about one subject here, about the stories that we tell ourselves, but like another podcast, but we could go on so many different tangents here, because just that one thought takes us into our value. One thought takes us into our worthiness. You know, it can branch off into all of these different areas, our self-love, you know, our abundance thoughts. It's all of these thoughts that come from this one story. And this is why I think those stories people are so hesitant in letting go of. Because when you let go of that story, you let go of that belief. And if you let go of that belief, it means you get an opportunity to create a whole new belief. And sometimes people have that safety net that it's like, well, if I don't believe this, then what am I? Or who am I?
Yeah, it plays into the identity there as
Yeah.
well, like of letting go of a belief that you've had, because this is who I am.
Yes.
This is who we are as a family, right? Or as women. And if I let go of that, who am I now?
Yes.
Which is the shedding of those layers of identity. And it can be really scary. So finding something that you can believe in next, something that you want to believe in instead, and doing a process around attracting that in and feeling and really deeply anchoring that into your body and your nervous system so that it's the new belief and you become that belief. It becomes a part of you, right? This new identity of like, actually, I am worthy of attracting money. And how does that feel in my body? And this is who I am now.
And that's right, because how many times have people said to you, if you won Cross Lotto this week, it's $50 million. If you won $50 million, what would you do? And just for a moment, you actually start allowing yourself to dream, going, oh, I buy a new car and I get that house and then I go on this holiday. And the more you think about it, the more excited you get. Like, I've really got this money and I'm gonna go get this car. And you can make yourself believe that you're going to win that money. So
I have to try. I've never done it with cross lotto before, but I've definitely done it with other things.
but if you can do that with that little question of what would you do if you won Cross Lotto today? If you won $10 million in Cross Lotto, what would you do with that money? And if you can roll off all these thoughts and really feel that in your body, that's a new story because you're feeling like I've actually won that money. That's the story that you're telling yourself. I'm winning Cross Lotto and I'm going to do these things. So, if you've got the list of your stories, maybe even as another little tactic or tool would be to write, whatever the story is, think about it and go through the processes that we talked about, and then write beside it, what is the opposite of that?
Yeah,
what's
perfect.
The polarization of that story? What's the new story that you can change that?
Yeah. What do you want to believe?
What do you want to believe in that? So if the story was, I don't have any money, we don't have any money, you could create the story in saying, like what we said, I have an abundance of money available to me. You don't have to believe that story in that moment because people are going, yeah, right, as if I could just change and think that way. No. But remember when you were born, you had a clean slate and you didn't think anything because you were brand new. And somewhere along the line, that story was told to you and it got embedded into your brain. So if you can embed that into your brain, you can change and create a new embodiment of a story into your brain. That's by changing.
Creating those new neural pathways in your brain, rewiring your brain. But we learn through repetition, right? Just like a child learning to walk or ride a bike or learning the alphabet.
Times tables.
Yeah.
How many times did we sing those?
Through repetition.
Exactly.
I am abundant.
What? We should make up a little song. Come on, let's go. We are abundant. Make up something. And it is that. It's just like I'm going to sing that all afternoon now. I am abundant.
So the next part of it's bringing in the feeling.
Yes.
All right, because we're using all of our senses, right? So we've done the logic, the mind, the vision, sight, visualization, imagination, your hearing, your sound, what are you telling yourself? And then you can bring in the feeling. Okay, so you can use taste and smell as well, but people they're just if you want to, but I'm just going to do the feeling one now. So like we're talking about being abundant, what does that actually feel like? to be abundant, and just allow yourself to go there using your powerful imagination. That's what it's for. Um, and just allow yourself to feel abundant. Like Sonya said, use that visualization. Yes, I've won all this money, or I have all this money. And how does that feel now in my body? How do I get to feel now?
Mm-hmm.
How do I get to show up as this new version of me who has an abundance of money or love or peace or whatever it might be for you,
Exactly. It
right?
doesn't
I'm
have to be
talking about
money.
money. So, yeah, what does that feel like in your body? And allow yourself to really feel that feeling and take yourself there using your imagination, like Sonia said, I'll be in this new house, or, what does that look like? And really allow yourself to go there and feel what it feels like in your body. And that's going to lift your energy up. Working with your emotions helps lift your energy and raise your vibration. So that's where we raise our vibration, is by bringing in that new feeling. So if this is a feeling that you've never felt before, being abundant, allow yourself to imagine it. If you're on
Exactly.
holidays, like, what does that feel like? Being relaxed. I'm like, no stress. There's no tension in my body. I'm just free. There's no like thoughts or worries or responsibilities. I can just relax and let my mind be free and empty. And the energy is just flowing through my body. All those good feelings of relaxation and peace and enjoyment, or whatever it might be.
I can just feel the sun and I can feel the sand in my toes.
Beautiful.
And I'm just like feeling that on the beach there, and it's just so beautiful of feeling into that beautiful space, and I think when you do that, like Toni was saying, you want to raise that vibration. So for those of you out there who are feeling very heavy and energetically heavy, you're actually going to feel a lot lighter, because you're going to allow yourself to lift and lift and lift and bring it up. And so again, we all know that we're attracting what we want, and we also attract in what we don't want by feeling heavy and thinking the stories. So
we're talking about the law of vibration when we're talking about attraction.
Yeah, that's right. And so imagine that as you're thinking and thinking, allowing yourself to think even more and get higher in the vibration and the energy, you might be really surprised that, however long that is, I'll call it a couple of days, that you might start seeing things change in your external reality, because we create our reality.
Yeah.
And now there's
really
a new story for you. You create your own reality. Some people don't like that story because they want to blame that the external world is happening aside from anything that they're doing. But it's like you're in a movie theater and you pick the movie that you want to watch.
Oh, I love that.
And you're watching it, right? I'm like, I'm going to go and see, I don't know, Pretty Woman, right? So you're going to go there and you're going to feel all the feels. And then all of a sudden, some horror movie comes on the screen. You're like, I didn't choose this, but you did. At some point, you actually got up and you went into another little theater without even being aware of it. Maybe you're sleepwalking, but you went into the other theater and you started watching a different program, because you choose that. The stories that you tell yourself bring different pictures in front of us. They show different movies.
That's right.
So, if you want to watch the same kind of genre of a movie and you don't want to be caught up in a horror movie that comes on board, then be really conscious about the stories that you're telling yourself.
I'm going to change the story.
Change that story, absolutely.
And it's about being masterful and learning to be masterful, right? And it's changing the story is rewiring your brain and choosing something different for yourself.
And at first it feels like it takes a long time to change that story. And sometimes it might take you, like, you might think something and then you might not realize that you're telling yourself one of those old pattern stories, and it might take you a day and then you go, I told myself that story yesterday. But then you become aware of it And then it gets shorter and shorter and shorter to the point where sometimes you have that, you go, bang, I'm swapping that story right now. I'm rubbing that out and I'm putting the new story in place, to the point that then it transfers over and that old story doesn't play out anymore. The new story does, because it's just like we said before, it's that repetitiveness. So if you're if you're if you're feeling the story come up, and then a couple of hours later you realize it, don't beat yourself up going, oh, I can't do it, because then there's another story that you're
That's
embedding.
right. You can actually congratulate yourself
Yes. Go,
for
yes,
being aware.
exactly. I've become aware. I've become aware. And then it's just about bringing that timeline back to the point where it'll eventually cross over. But like anything, the first time you got up to walk, you didn't just get up and start walking and then start sprinting down the hallway in your house as a baby. You fell over many times. You probably banged your head. You might have banged your legs. And so it's all practice. It's just this continual honoring of yourself, knowing that you are worth it, to practice this so that you can change your thoughts, which will then change your outcome, which will then change the story that you're watching up on the big screen.
Yeah. So one of the stories, oh, we don't have any more time for that, Toni. I was like, I was about to go into a whole new story.
Okay, so we'll save that one for next time.
Yeah. Was there anything else we wanted to finish off with about stories?
I think that's pretty much it. It's just, the three phases that we've just gone through for you today is that, what is the story that you're telling yourself? And then taking some action in that by writing it down, being aware of it, and then the releasing and that, yeah, I can't think of the word. Transforming that is to change the story, is to change that story. So there's always a solution to every situation, in a sense.
And that's, transformation, self-mastery, like empowerment. It's choosing not to be the victim.
Yes.
And to be the victor of your life, right? Learning self-mastery.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day.
Bye. Bye.